In this video, we're going to take a look at how to access and utilize the tool for attendance in the ODE student recovery dashboard. So two ways to get to this. One, if you have the slideshow, obviously you can just click on the link within the slideshow and it'll take you there, take you to a page that looks something like this. And I'm just going to click on that so you can see that pop up for you here. Here's the recovery dashboard. It'll take a second to load. If you don't have the link in the slides and you go to, still loading, there we go. But if you don't have that link in the slides and you go to the Department of Education homepage, the easiest way to get to this right now is going to Future Forward Ohio, clicking on the link there. And you have a link here, the student recovery dashboard. It'll take you right to the same page we were just on. So from here, this dashboard has a ton of information. It really is a good resource, and it's a new development from the Department of Education. You can see everything over here from how, ESSER funding is being spent, enrollment trends, graduation trends, of the past couple of years, and it goes back to 2018 enrollment. But I'm going to click on absenteeism over here. You can choose a specific district to look at. I'm just going to leave it as all, and so that's just me looking at data for the entire state. So we're going to go into absenteeism, and I know this is small. You can click down here to open it in full screen mode, but this is just looking at the chronic absenteeism rate for all students statewide. So you can see absenteeism rate, the percentage of students absent, and then the chronic absenteeism base in terms of how many students that made up, right? And so down here, we can also see this in a nice bar graph in terms of how many students were satisfactory, how many students were at risk, moderately at risk, and severely at risk in terms of their absence. So now what's really nice is when you get into this, we're going to open this up in the full advanced report, and you get a little bit more detail in terms of what you can and can't do, not to mention it's a bigger screen to take a look at. So let's give this a second to load here. So again, we're looking at the same home screen that we started on. We could choose a district, but for this, I'm just going to deal with all the data for the state, not to single anybody out or highlight anybody. Go over to absenteeism again. Again, we're still looking at the same chart, but you might want to say, hey, I want to get a little more granular with this. What can I do beyond just choosing a district? So if you notice over here, this changed from absenteeism to absenteeism trends. If you click on that button again, now you got an option to be able to choose some subgroups for students. So we can take a look at, how are we doing in terms of our students with disabilities for chronic absenteeism statewide. So we can see students with and without disabilities. And unfortunately, but not surprising, we have a higher rate of chronic absenteeism in our students with disabilities. So how do we address that as a state as a whole? And obviously, if you're in a district, what are our homeless students looking like with chronic absenteeism? Much higher. Again, not a surprise there, but again, that's a pretty significant jump there. Obviously the numbers in 2020 are probably skewed a little bit because of COVID. So keep that in mind as you're trying to figure out what's going on here, right? And so you can go through here and play with this a little bit more. There are filters and things that you can pick. Over here, you have the opportunity to export that data, print the data, change this to full screen. It gives you some information about the report and help. But this is a nice tool just to be able to get a quick visualization, not at the smallest of levels as we were looking at before in some of the reports, but certainly looking at some trends in terms of chronic absenteeism for your district.